Hello artists, and welcome back to Art at Home with Mrs. Kellogg. If you recall from the last video, we learned all about shape, one of the primary elements of art. And this week's project, we're going to learn even more. So meet me over at my workspace, and I'm going to tell you all about our project and the materials you will need. As I said before, we're going to use that really important element of art, shape. And in this week's project, we're going to use a lot of geometric shapes. Some circles, triangles, ovals, lots of squares, and lots of rectangles. And the reason is because we're going to make a cityscape. Now, the materials you will need are, you want to always make sure you have a mat or newspaper laid out before you put your art paper and start using your supplies. So we're going to definitely need an art paper. We will need some pencils. You want to make sure that those are sharpened and ready to go. I always recommend having that sharpener close by. You want to make sure you have a good eraser, and you can use a black colored pencil, or if you have a fine tip black marker, you can use either one of those. And I'm rolling in the colored pencils because we're using colored pencils for this project. Now, you can use regular colored pencils, or you could even use watercolor pencils if you have them. Okay, so those are the materials that we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is have you pause the video, get your materials, and I'll meet you back here. Did you get your materials? Great. Then let's get started. Okay, so these are the steps of our project, and we're going to start with line. So we're going to draw lines, and you can draw lines different heights. And then what we're going to do, it's almost going to look like you're going to put an arrow at the top, or think of it as the pointy part of the triangle at the top. And then we're going to turn those lines into shapes. And you can see how I'm making those rectangles. Then we'll add the windows, and then you can create whatever sky you would like. And then we're going to add color. So let me show you how to do that. And we're going to start using our element of art, the lines in. Now, you're always welcome to use a ruler if you'd like, but I'm going to draw freehand without a ruler. So I'm going to draw one line. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is draw another line. It's going to be shorter than that other one. And then I'm going to draw another line. Okay. I can add more lines, but first I want to see what this looks like. And this is where, notice I've got a diagonal line, a diagonal line. So now it looks like an arrow. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for here. And then I'm going to do one more over here. Now it's up to you if you want to add more lines, but what I want to do is get my buildings in first, and then if I want to add more buildings, I can. So next step, I'm now going to turn those lines into shapes, and if you notice, they're rectangular. Okay, so my first step is I draw one line down. I notice this one's going to overlap. So that means they're going to touch. And this one isn't going to quite touch. So you can have them touching or not. Okay, now that I have that done, I notice I can see some of this line in there. So I want it to look like this building's in front of the other. So I'm going to draw that line one more time over there. Okay. So now the next step is to put the windows in, or if you want to put the doors in. Okay, so in order to do this, what you want to do is follow the line on the top of the building. So, for example, if you look at this line, see how it's a diagonal line. I want my window to follow that, the top line of the window to follow that. So if this line goes this way, this line's going to be that way. And the bottom part of the bottom line of that window is going to go the same way. Okay, so notice this, they all line up. This is going this way, this goes this way, and this goes this way. And I use my pencil to see that angle. And then I'm just going to connect them on the side. And if this line goes this way, this line goes this way. Okay, so I want them all to line up. And if they're not exactly the same, that's okay. And if you want, you can always check with your pencil. Okay. And then I'm going to put one, and I'm going to make this one skinnier. Okay, now I'm going to go on this side. So notice, this side of the building, the windows are going to angle in this direction. So now, and again, if this goes this way, this goes this way. And then the bottom line of that window is going to go the same. And I'm going to continue on. Maybe this one I'm going to make a little wider. I'll see what that looks like. Do the same thing for all the buildings. I just check that roof line of the building and the windows, the top line of the window and the bottom line of the window will just follow that line. So I'm just going to continue on. And you decide how many windows you want to put in, what shapes you want to make them. Are they going to be long and thin? Are you going to put doors in? You decide. And I can continue on with that. Okay, once I get that in, it's time for the sky. So you could put stars in the sky, however you want to design the sky. You could leave it empty, you could put clouds. So I'm going to use this. Since I use so many rectangles and squares, I'm going to use some ovals and rounder shapes. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to see these angles. I'm going to put it on an angle. So I'm going to, okay. And then I want it a little bigger, and it might touch the buildings and go off the page, and that's okay. So see, I figure out what side that would come out. So it almost looks like a flying saucer is taking off. So that's kind of fun to play around and make it almost like a sci-fi cityscape. And I might change where that is. And then sometimes I like to turn my paper upside down when I'm doing this to kind of just get a different look or perspective. And I'm going to change the placement of that. Okay, so always remember when artists work, they draw things in, they have to look at them and see if they like it, if it works for them. A lot of times they draw things in, they get everything in, and then they change some things. And that's not a mistake. That's just the process of drawing, painting, and creating art. So you have to draw things, look at them, and then you make your changes or your adjustments. Okay, so I think that's ready. So now my next step after I get this, this is where I would use either my black colored pencil to trace everything, or I could use my Sharpie marker. So now I have everything traced, and I decided to go in and shade some of my windows black, and then I also used the gray of the pencil, and then I left some windows blank. Okay, so look at how shape has really helped us create this art piece. So now it's time to use another element of art, color. So finally, dun, 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 color. So when I think of color, you'll notice that I repeat my colors. So I think of color in pattern. So I always know that good design is when you repeat lines, shapes, and colors. So I think about that when I'm choosing my colors. So whatever works for you, sometimes what I like to do is set up my colors ahead of time. But if you like to use all the colors, go right ahead. Now I've started to add my color. And if you're working with markers or colored pencil, this might help. If your hand, again, is getting kind of tired, just relax your grip. And it's okay to hold your pencil or marker higher. Find a comfortable place, but if your hand is getting sore, a lot of times you're just holding your art tool too tight. The other thing, when you're coloring, or a lot of artists will use the word shading in with your color, it's really helpful just to do little sections at a time. Then you have a nice even blend of your color. And it actually works out to be a lot faster than trying to do the whole thing at one time. And remember, when you're doing these art projects, you don't have to do them in just one session. You can break up the sessions or divide the sessions up into as many as you need. Okay, so that is our lesson on focusing on shape to create a cityscape. So always remember, when you're making art, that you always want to relax and have lots of fun and keep creating.